So let's take a more in-depth look at what the ACSF actually is. The core skills represented are learning, reading, writing, oral communication, and numeracy. It is believed that these 5 core skills are the foundational skills of all workplace competency. The Australian Core Skills Framework can be used to identify and describe an individual's performance in these core skills so that training can be targeted to areas of need and an individual's progress can be monitored over time. The way we do that is by analysing the training specifications. These are the qualifications and units of competency. Then we analyse learner profiles, and finally we analyse the training and assessment materials. The ACSF provides us a lot of information regarding the development of core skills within individuals. First is the levels of performance, ranging from 1 to 5. These are described using the indicators, the focus areas, the performance features, and sample activities within the ACSF document. The 4 performance variables that may influence a person's performance at any time are support, context, and text and task complexity. So for example, being able to support a candidate will improve their ability to perform. The context of where a particular task might happen will also influence their performance. And finally, if the text and the task are more complex than needed, then a person's performance will be affected. Similarly, if it's too low for the expectations of a task, then the person's performance will also be impacted. Finally, there are 3 domains of communication. These are broad contexts within which the core skills may be used. Of course, there's personal and community, workplace and employment, and finally education and training. So we'll take a quick look here at the performance indicators for each of the core skills. The performance indicators are denoted by a number. That number begins with 0.01 and 0.02 for learning, and you'll see on the right there is a description for each. So learning at 0.01 addresses active awareness of the self as a learner and their ability to plan and manage learning. 0.02 is about how they acquire and apply practical strategies to facilitate their learning. For reading, it's 0.03 and 0.04. 0.03 refers to the audience purpose and meaning making from what they are reading, and 0.04 talks about how they approach reading, so their reading strategies. For writing, it's 0.05 and 0.06. Again, it's the audience and the mechanics of writing for 0.06. Oral communication is broken down quite simply to speaking and listening. That's 0.07 and 0.08. Numeracy is broken down into 3 performance indicators, 0.09 through to 0.11. And you can see there by the descriptions that these tackle very specific areas of numeracy. The first being able to identify mathematical information and meaning in activities and texts. The second is using and applying mathematical knowledge and problem-solving processes. And the third is being able to communicate and represent mathematics across those 3 domains we looked at earlier. The domains included personal, workplace, and education. A further breakdown of each of the indicators is provided within the ACSF. This really allows us to get into what each of the indicators is trying to measure. 0.01, which was the first learning indicator, and talked about awareness of self as a learner, can be further identified by looking at these 3 other points: learner identity, their goals and pathways, and how they plan and organise. If we skip down to the bottom right and look at indicator 0.06 for writing, the mechanics of writing refer to things like use of vocabulary and grammar, punctuation, spelling, and legibility. If we look now at oral communication and numeracy, we can see again how it's broken down so that we can better measure both the training specifications and the learners. If we want to analyse a training specification, we need to know what to look for. So on the left, I have an extract from a unit of competency. You'll see the elements and performance criteria. And on the right, I've taken a screenshot of the performance indicators for numeracy. That screenshot is directly out of the ACSF document. So if we look at the first performance criteria and quickly read through it, it says extract highly embedded specialised mathematical information from a range of complex workplace texts and tasks. Then we look over at the indicators for something that relates to that so that it can help us to match a particular performance level. On the right-hand side, by reading through the indicator descriptions, we find that 4.09 maps most closely to that performance criteria. If we choose another, and in this case I've taken a screenshot of the learning indicators, you'll see that performance criteria 1.3 talks about incorporating information from other sources to inform and support analysis of the extracted information when necessary. If we read through the performance levels on the right, you can see that that's not really covered in low areas like demonstrating some awareness of a self as a learner or anything like that. It's quite high. In fact, it probably maps closest to performance level 3.02, where it says the person experiments with new learning strategies in familiar contexts and applies some strategies in less familiar contexts. So there is a bit of subjectivity to this. However, with those indicator descriptions and the way performance criteria are written, you should be able to match across the performance criteria to a level of the ACSF indicator without too much trouble. The way we then represent that is by going through each performance criteria, we end up with some core levels. Now, this doesn't include the indicator number, it's just the level of the core skill. And as we looked at 4 and 3 for numeracy and learning in the first element there, and there's also a 4 and a 4 for learning in the second element, we make an average for the whole unit and we always round down to the lowest. Reason being is we want to ensure that the person is matched most correctly to the unit and that the unit information we write, the training and assessment materials, are written at an appropriate level. So we end up with an average for the whole unit of numeracy 4 and learning a 3.